The story begins with an unconscious woman who is tied by her wrists and ankles. There is someone sitting very close to her, holding a revolver and watching the prisoner. After some time, the woman wakes up screaming and begins to thrash violently, demonstrating incredible strength. Her eyes are yellowed, and her whole body twists continuously until the man pulls the trigger. Next, we see a group of young people walking towards a lake. They look exhausted, and when someone warns that there are still over 3 hours to go, some groans of horror are heard. Matt is leading the group, as he has been to the lake as a child, but the girls begin to suspect that he is lost. Anyway, by the end of the afternoon, they decide to stop right there and continue the hike the next day. With a bit of difficulty, the group sets up the 3 tents, one for each couple, and finally rests a bit, as the trip was meant to be a relaxing getaway after final exams at college. They sit near the campfire to chat, and this is when we get to know a little more about each of them. Jesse is studying cardiology, and his girlfriend, Gina, plans to become a pediatrician. Matt and Brienne are also medical students, just like Alice, who chose to specialize in infectious diseases. The only one from a different field is Jules, Alice's girlfriend, who is graduating in history. Suddenly, a kind of eerie howl interrupts the conversation, and Jesse says it must just be a lost dog, but the others disagree. Alice says it sounded more like a coyote, and Gina gets a little scared upon hearing that. Matt worsens the situation by informing them that that area is full of wildlife, like wolves and bears. Jesse tries to calm his girlfriend down, reminding her that they are only stupid animals, and that most are more afraid of humans than the other way around. Seeing that Gina is wearing a fancy coat, Jules makes a joke and says that the animals will want their skin back, but the girl finds it no laughing matter and decides to go to sleep. Jesse complains about the rudeness before going after her, and this effectively ends the party. In the tent, Jules asks Alice about her friendship with Brienne, and she swears that despite being very close, there has never been anything beyond that. Then they start talking about coming out, a complicated issue because they were both raised in very different families. Alice became very attached to her father after losing her mother, and she knows that he will not react well when he finds out she is gay. Jules believes that parental love always triumphs over these issues, but she struggles to understand her girlfriend's fears and promises to support her. Little do the two know that the others are gossiping about them in the other tents at the same time. Remembering that Alice once hooked up with Jesse, Gina feels a bit insecure, and her boyfriend doesn't put much effort into comforting her, saying he's only not with Alice because she switched teams. Matt also finds this change strange, but Brienne defends the girl couple and claims that the two are happy together. Taking advantage of the romance talk, Matt gives her an engagement ring, and she is moved by the proposal, accepting on the spot. Soon after, he says he needs to step away for a moment to relieve himself by a tree. Since the night is very quiet, it's easy to hear any movement, and because of this, Matt goes on high alert when a guttural sound begins to come from the darkness. It is then that a humanoid creature comes running on all fours and jumps on him so fast that he hardly has time to scream for help. Brienne is still admiring the ring while her fiancé is being attacked. The creature knocks him to the ground and rips out his entrails while the young man is still alive. After a few minutes, Brienne begins to get worried about the delay and decides to go out with a lantern to see if Matt is nearby. Not far from the campsite, she is totally shocked to see what appears to be a monster devouring the remains of the young man. Her blood freezes when she sees that the creature has also noticed her presence, and when the horrible grimace turns around, Brienne cannot contain her screams. She drops the lantern in despair and runs back. The other 4 immediately jump up, alarmed by their friend's screams, and grab their lanterns to search for her. Jesse and Alice end up finding Brienne unconscious on the ground with a wounded face, but still alive. Alice says she needs to get her to the hospital right now, and Jesse responds rudely, reminding her that they are in the middle of nowhere. Then Jules notices the fallen lantern, and when she lifts it, it illuminates what remains of Matt. Stunned by the scene, the young people take Brienne into one of the tents, and Alice asks Jesse to look for a first aid kit among the friends' things. Gina is very nervous, as the thing that attacked the couple may return at any moment. Alice warns her girlfriend that she will spend the night tending to Brienne and tells her to sleep in another tent. Jules seems a little upset, but again obeys without complaint and stays alone in Matt's tent, who is getting up outside without anyone knowing. The next day, Alice wakes up to the voice of a stranger talking to her friends. His name is Bill Talbot, and he lives in an isolated cabin nearby where he has a series of emergency supplies. He suggests taking Brienne there, and the young people thank him for the offer, helping to carry her. Alice asks if he has a phone or if there is a nearby ranger station, but Talbot explains that he lives there precisely to stay far away from people. Upon arriving at his cabin, it's decided that someone will walk to civilization to seek help, and Jules offers to go with Jesse. Gina stays with Brienne, who is now awake and inconsolable about her early widowhood. Meanwhile, Alice takes Talbot to Matt's body, but he is no longer there when they arrive, and there is only a large bloodstain. Unconvinced, Alice insists that the dead man couldn't have gotten up and gone away, but we know that is exactly what happened. When they return to the cabin, Gina is nervously on the porch and asks her friend to come in quickly to see Brienne, as she is getting worse. At the same time, Jules tries to keep pace with Jesse, who makes no effort to wait for her. The two suddenly stop when they see a dead rabbit hanging from a tree branch, not knowing who could have done that. However, the conversation quickly turns into an argument, and Jesse admits that he hates Jules because he doesn't believe Alice really likes women. In great anger, Jules pushes the boy, and he ends up stepping into a bear trap. She panics upon seeing what she did and apologizes, trying to help him free his leg, but neither of them can manage it, and their attempts only cause more pain. Giving up on this strategy, Jesse asks Jules to go call someone, and she obeys, running away. Alice takes care of Brienne, who is getting increasingly nervous and scared about dying. She assures her friend that everything will be all right, and hides her worry when a tuft of hair comes loose. Talbot warns the girls that the sun is already setting, which means Jules and Jesse should have returned by now. When Alice and Gina talk about Brienne, he quietly says that the girl is dying, but when Alice asks him to repeat it, he claims he didn't say anything. Then Talbot decides to go to sleep and explains where the two can find blankets if they need them. After he leaves, Alice tells Gina that she doesn't trust him, and the two decide to sleep in shifts. It has already gotten dark, and Jesse is still trapped in the bear trap in the middle of the woods, while Jules seems lost. She lights up the foliage around her, trying to find the right path, when she begins to hear a chilling sound coming closer and closer. Running behind a tree, she hopes it's not a coyote, and musters the courage to peek. The same creature that attacked Matt and Brienne is hunched over the ground just a few meters away, and that is much worse than a coyote. Struggling to remain completely silent, she lays flat on the ground and inches towards the most hidden corner possible, as the being has already detected her presence. It comes close to her and stands in the same area, looking around as if it is sniffing for prey while she covers her mouth with her hand to contain her gasping breaths. Alice is dozing in the chair and wakes up to the sound of footsteps, just in time to see a figure passing through the door. On tiptoe, she grabs the gun and goes to the bedroom, where she catches Talbot next to her friend, with a syringe in hand. Brienne wakes up with her scream asking what that means, and Talbot replies that it's just antibiotics. Alice does not believe him and orders him to step away from the girl. After a moment of hesitation, he explains that he has no choice and moves forward with the syringe towards Brienne's neck. Alice pulls the trigger, and Gina wakes up at the sound of the shot, alarmed. In the woods, Jules waits for the creature to move away and runs away from there. Alice's shot only grazes Talbot, but it makes him lose consciousness. She and Gina are treating his wound when strange sounds start coming from outside. Alice decides to go out to check, almost losing patience with Gina, who never really knows what to do. The creature is about 100 meters from the cabin when Alice opens the door, and Talbot quickly recovers to Gina's despair. He says that Brienne has been infected with an incurable virus, and soon she will turn into something that is not human. Gina gets nervous when he starts yelling at her, telling her to go to the bedroom and shoot her friend before it is too late for everyone. In panic, she accidentally fires, but only hits the bookshelf in the living room, and Talbot seizes the commotion to flee the cabin, colliding with Alice on the porch. Gina tells her everything Talbot said, and Alice barely pays attention, saying that he is just a madman. Then she realizes that a certain point on the living room floor is hollow and discovers that there is a large hidden trapdoor beneath the carpet. Gina is afraid to go down to the basement, but she soon realizes that it is worse to stay away from Alice and decides to follow her. Downstairs, they find several bottles of extremely strong tranquilizers on the table and a cot in the corner where there is a pair of handcuffs. Alice says that Talbot seems to have kept someone locked up down there, probably for a long time. The two are still snooping around the dreadful captivity when someone starts banging on the front door, and Alice realizes that Gina went down without the gun. Very quickly, she goes up to the living room and arms herself again before asking who it is, but immediately opens the door upon hearing her girlfriend's voice. Crying, Jules hugs her and starts explaining Jesse's misadventure, while he lives through a terrifying encounter. The creature approaches, making guttural sounds, and only when it gets very close to his face does he recognize Matt. Indifferent to the friendships of his past life, Matt attacks Jesse without hesitation and begins to devour him. The next morning, Alice and Jules go out to rescue Jesse, leaving Gina with Brienne. Talbot's words about Brienne are still in Gina's head, and she gets even more anxious when her teeth start to fall out. Upon finding Jesse, Alice examines his body and tells Jules that there is a weak pulse, so he is technically still alive. She opens the trap with a tool she stole from the cabin, and the two begin to carry him until Jules asks for a break to rest. Alice says that after all this, she has decided to tell her father the truth. Then she starts talking about him and how he taught her to hunt, but she lost her taste for the activity right on the first rabbit, as she was traumatized when she saw that the animal didn't die instantly. After the break, the two continue carrying Jesse to the cabin, where Gina panics upon seeing his state. From what Alice has studied about epidemics, she says that this seems to be a virus transmitted by the bite of that mysterious animal, and states that both Brienne and Jesse need to be hospitalized. But as it is almost dark again, they will only be able to take them the next day, and once again, they decide to sleep in shifts. Gina stays with her boyfriend, and Alice wants to keep watch, but Jules convinces her to rest a bit to recharge, since the next day will be quite demanding. However, she herself falls asleep sometime later and does not hear the front door creaking in the middle of the night. The intruder takes the gun from her hands and points it at Alice's forehead, while, in the bedroom, Jesse suddenly opens his eyes. Alice wakes up startled to find Talbot aiming at her and starts scolding her for not having listened to his advice. He also says he will do whatever he has to do to protect his son. Jules wakes up to their voices and sneaks into the kitchen unnoticed, grabbing a knife. Meanwhile, Gina is startled to wake up alone in bed to find one of Jesse's teeth beside her. The room is very dark, but she starts hearing a guttural sound and realizes there is a strange shape on top of the dresser. The thing begins to move slowly before lunging at her, and then Gina screams, causing Talbot to lose concentration. Alice seizes the chance and begins to try to disarm him with Jules's help, while Jesse bites into Gina's neck. A stab finally makes Talbot drop the rifle, and Jules keeps an eye on him while Alice rushes to the bedroom. She arrives just in time to see the attack, but Jesse escapes through the window before she can start shooting. After this, Alice is more prepared to hear Talbot's version, and he explains that that first monster, the one that attacked Matt, was his son Ben. Talbot calls the phenomenon wild virus and tells that he kept his son chained in the basement for as long as he could, but the boy managed to escape. Even if the victim does not die during the attack, the virus itself is lethal, and there is no chance of survival. Alice becomes agitated when he details the second phase of the infection, in which the dead come back to life. But Talbot appeals to everything she saw with her own eyes. Each victim becomes one of those creatures, hibernating during the day and spreading terror at night. That is what happened to Ben during a family trip when they stayed at the cabin. He attacked his mother, his wife, and even his daughter. Talbot was forced to watch all his relatives transform into monsters. We learn that it was he in that dark room we saw, watching his wife transform. Alice asks what will happen to her friends, and Talbot laments, but the only solution is a bullet. Gina protests upon hearing this, and Alice decides to leave Talbot locked in the basement while she decides what to do. He pleads with her not to do this, as the creatures always return where there is food, and he will be defenseless when they arrive, but she simply closes the trapdoor in his face. Jules goes to check on Brienne, but soon realizes that the metamorphosis has already begun. This triggers an ugly fight between her and Alice, as Jules is starting to agree with Talbot's methods, while Alice refuses to give up on saving her best friend. For this reason, they take Brienne to the basement as well and force Talbot to help them, restraining the girl on the cot. Gina ends up being scratched on the face during this process, and Alice sends Jules to fetch some things from up top. While she gathers everything Alice asked for, we see that one of the creatures is watching her from the other side of the window, very close to the cabin. She returns to the basement without noticing the danger, and after Alice treats Gina's wounds, the two tie Talbot up with the tightest knot they know how to make. Just then, they hear some banging sounds upstairs, and Talbot says it's the monsters coming. Alice goes up to the living room armed and begins to check the rooms, finding a hole in the door. Jules keeps watch in the basement, and Talbot starts bothering her, still upset about the stab wound. Then he warns her that Gina is also showing signs that the transformation is about to start, and asks Jules to untie him so he can help contain his girlfriend. She doesn't fall for that trick, but agrees to sedate Gina, not knowing that Talbot only wants her to look the other way while he gets free. Jules fills the syringe with tranquilizers and leaves everything ready for him, which he then uses to attack her, jabbing the needle into her neck. Alice approaches the hole in the door and gets close to peek outside until a voracious mouth suddenly appears on the other side, threateningly clicking its teeth. She shoves the barrel of the gun through the hole and fires, blowing the invader's brains out, which she then recognizes as Matt. After checking through the rooms, she thinks she has checked everything, but Jesse appears right behind her. This time the shot isn't as accurate, and he quickly escapes, hiding in another room. Again, he tries to surprise her from behind, but now Alice is ready and aims for the middle of his skull. Back in the basement, Talbot makes her trip on the stairs and fall headfirst to the ground, unconscious. We see that Gina is really starting the transformation process, opening her eyes just as Talbot leaves, locking all 4 girls in the basement. However, his punishment does not take long, and he is attacked by his own son minutes after this. When Alice wakes up, Gina has already turned into a monster and is drooling over Jules, who remains unconscious. Armed with a bat, she bravely defends her girlfriend, winning the fight against the zombie version of Gina, crushing her head in the end. Jules wakes up a few minutes later, and Alice explains everything that happened, warning that Ben is in the cabin, but it is safe down there since he doesn't know they are in the basement. She barely finishes saying this, and Brienne wakes up screaming at the top of her lungs. Alice manages to sedate her again, but the damage is already done, and Ben begins scratching the floor with hungry growls. Then she says she will distract him as soon as he breaks into the basement and makes Jules promise that she will run without looking back. It doesn't take long for the trapdoor to give way, causing the zombie to fall down the stairs. Alice lunges at him with the baseball bat, and Jules runs away as agreed. As soon as the first opening in the fight appears, Alice runs upstairs and grabs the gun. Ben climbs right after and takes a bullet as he passes the trap door. But Alice can't even celebrate her victory because she soon hears a scream outside. Jules is being chased through the woods by one of the creatures, and Alice arrives right in the middle of the attack. Even aiming from a distance, she manages to take down the enemy, but sees that Jules is also staggering out and is devastated to discover she has been scratched on the stomach. In tears, Jules says she doesn't want to be a zombie and asks her girlfriend to put an end to her suffering. Alice also cries and says she won't be able to do that, but understands that the other doesn't want to live chained or sedated. So the two stay together until dawn, and Alice hands the gun to Jules, stepping away so she won't witness the scene. She trembles upon hearing the shot from a distance and then gathers her strength for the walk to town. At the same time, in the cabin's basement, Brienne is waking up again.